You are listening to the Digital Parent Podcast with your host, Ced Lewis.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Digital Parent Podcast. We are back from our long holiday hiatus, and I have a special treat for you on this episode. Now, how many of you parents remember the movie Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan and Rachel McAdams that discussed like A-list social cliques within the high schools? You know, very, very popular movie, made millions of dollars, right? But the term Mean Girls now only has one connotation, which is bullying. Article after article of quote-unquote mean girls engaged in bullying at the young age of 4, 5, 6, all the way up to elementary school and definitely middle school. So in order to address this, we brought in our good friend and expert on this subject, Katie Hurley. Now, Katie is an LCSW, a parenting expert and a child psychotherapist. And more importantly, she's the author of the new book, No More Mean Girls. And the thing I love about Katie, she has such a strong clinical background that when you read this book, she has tons of practical interventions that you can teach your daughter to allow her to become more compassionate and more kind towards others. So I'm really psyched about this interview. So let's get right to it. Our interview with Katie Hurley. Hey, Katie, welcome to the Digital Parent Podcast. We're so happy to have you on our show today to talk about your great brand new book called No More Mean Girls that's out today. So can you give us a little bit of feedback about the book and why you wrote the book and some of the things that parents and teenage girls in particular are going to be thrilled about when they pick up this book?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to get this book out into the world. It's kind of been, even though it took, about a year and a half to write it, it's sort of been brewing for the last nearly 20 years because I've been working with kids and adolescents and families for, nearly 2 decades now. And I've seen a lot of change. I don't work just specifically with girls, though I do run a lot of groups for girls to empower them because I'm a big believer in the power of female friendships and teaching girls who become women who lift each other up instead of compete. We see a lot of unhealthy competition at different stages of girlhood and womanhood. And I'm sort of on a personal mission to help girls and women understand that when we all work together, we all reach just a little bit higher. But I've seen a lot of changes over the last couple decades in how girls relate. And some of the behaviors that I used to see in my office with high school girls, some of the so-called, quote, mean girl stuff has kind of trickled down to younger and younger ages. And so I wrote this book really because I wanted to help parents have more of a blueprint of what to do when this stuff happens, because a lot of times it happens at school when their kids are away from them and they don't necessarily see it right in their faces. So it's hard to really understand the magnitude of what happens behind the scenes with girls. And I wanted to give parents some skills and some information and, maybe some strategies they can use to help empower their girls to be, team players and upstanders.
So, Katie, your background is you're an LCSW, right? You're a licensed clinical social worker, but you've also spent a lot of years in the school system as a school social worker. Is that correct?
I did. That's right. I started out as a school therapist, social worker, and, within a few years, I became a clinical director at that school, and the school where I worked specialized in learning differences. And so my background specialties is anxiety disorders, which tends to go hand in hand with learning differences.
So you have a lot of experience in seeing these girls come to your office, talking about, their difficulty with, other girls being mean, aggression, things of that nature.
I do. And, one of the benefits of working in a school, and I now work in private practice, so the girls walk home from school and come to me. But, in those days, what I loved about being right in the school is they would pop into my office at all hours. They would just get teacher permission to come in. And so I was dealing with things in real time, which is really important because, we all have different emotional reactions to things. And as adults, we do this. And for kids, it's no different. And if they can get help in the moment and they can really verbalize their feelings and sort of have someone help them sit back, take a few breaths, look, zoom out a little bit, look at the situation from a different perspective, they can really learn and they can really adjust in the moment. But a lot of times what happens now is there isn't the funding to have therapists on staff all the time to meet all the demands of all the kids. And so what happens is this stuff festers and it builds, and girls wait and wait and wait until they're really about to blow. And then that's when they go to their parents and say, I need help, or something's wrong, or I'm falling apart and I can't go to this school for one more day. So, something that's kind of shifted, and it's unfortunate, is that kids don't have the immediate help that they need. And in that kind of environment where I spent so many years, they had it. And because of that, we were able to really help kids get ahead of some of this stuff.
Well, this is what I love about the book, because, you really, provide like a go-to guide for parents so they know how to handle these different things. And one of the things I like about the first chapter, you talk about relational aggression. So for some of the parents who don't know what that is, usually when we talk about bullying, cyberbullying, we talk about it in a very generic type of fashion. But in your book, you really talk about when it comes to girls, the bullying and the cyberbullying is more relational. Can you kind of explain that for some of the parents who don't know what relational aggression is or what it means?
Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the big differences. And it's even starting to happen among boys now. We're not seeing sometimes we see the big fights that erupt in schools and they get caught on video. And are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And sorry, my computer did something weird. It gets caught on video, and we see, and we see it happening, and we say, oh my gosh, how can this happen? How can kids be doing this to each other? But those instances are sort of on the decrease right now. And what we're seeing more of is this concept of relational aggression, which does bleed into cyberbullying. And what it is, kids trying to harm someone by damaging or manipulating their relationships with others. So they're kind of going after their social status, their friendship status, and it's very sneaky. And one of the reasons teachers don't see it, and parents are always quick to say, how does the teacher not know? How does the school not know? Well, this stuff is very, very sneaky. First of all, hotspots, especially in middle and high schools, are passing periods, lunch periods, free or recess periods, whatever they call it at that age group in the school. And PE, where large groups of kids are doing, PE classes where they're told, oh, run a couple of laps. That's a hot spot for girls saying things to each other, spreading gossip and rumors. So, what we're seeing is they're attacking the person sort of secretly behind the scenes, and they're going at, they're spreading gossip about them. They're spreading rumors about them. They're going online either after school or when the teacher isn't looking. I mean, we all like to pretend that the phones go in the backpacks at school, but there's a lot of stuff happening on social media throughout the school day when people really start to track the phones and see what's going on. And so they're getting on Instagram and Snap and all the other apps, the WhatsApp and the messaging apps, and they're doing group messages to really say some damaging things about one another.
And one of the things I love about the book is that you're very honest by saying that one of the reasons that the kids do it is not because, they're mean or they're bad. It's fun. And I think a lot of girls told you that it's fun. They get enjoyment out of gossip, creating rumors. You also talk about how it's being role modeled by parents, other adults in their life. Especially when you look at like the media, there's a whole cottage gossip industry with sites like TMZ, Media Takeout, where every day, all day, they're reporting rumors, on the internet. So, there's a reason behind why we are seeing this behavior in the school system.
Absolutely. And, people say to me all the time, like, well, why is this such a big deal now? And, 30 years ago, kids didn't do this as much. And that's absolutely correct. 30 years ago, relational aggression, did it exist? Sure. People have always been capable of saying mean things and spreading a rumor or two. But these magazines and, like you say, the websites that are churning out gossip on a minute-to-minute basis, there's big money in catching celebrities supposedly doing things wrong, or having the hottest scoop on some celebrity. And we are modeling this all over the place for kids, and we can't escape it. Go into your local pharmacy, and what do you see as you're checking out? You see 7 different, all with different rumors on the cover, same picture, different story. If you start looking them over and you look really carefully at them, if you're at the doctor's office, if you're at the hair salon, if you're, whatever you're doing, you're out in the world, these magazines are everywhere and people are reading them. And for adults, we say things like, well, we know it's not true, and I'm just decompressing. And, sometimes it just feels good to read something like that, even if I know it's probably not true. But we don't really communicate that to kids. And so what they see is that this stuff is fun, that spreading rumors fun, and getting the hottest scoop on someone is fun. And that's what's being modeled for them. And then it comes down to their level, and it's really not so fun for the victim. I mean, and it should be said, it's really not so fun for the celebrities either,
Right.
Who are having to cope with stuff all the time. And sometimes they speak out about it. And I wish they would speak out about it more, because, people are people. And that's something that we have, we're seeing a real empathy deficit in this country right now. And empathy among teens is down 40%. And that's alarming to me. And so we need to speak out more and more about the importance of remembering what it means to be human.
But you know what, Katie, what I love about the book, and one of the things you give as an intervention for parents to kind of like teach that empathy, you talk about like the self-report card of sitting down with our daughters and talk about, what have we did nice for the week, who have we complimented for the week, just a way for parents to like check back in to ensure that their kids are being nice and being empathetic.
Yeah, and that's really important because, like you mentioned earlier, and like I say in the book, sometimes this stuff does feel, if for better or for worse, it feels fun. If you're on that sort of in group that's doing the gossiping and that's spreading the rumors, and you're sitting at that lunch table, or you're in that little cluster at recess or passing periods, it does seem funny and it does seem fun, and the kids they're getting something from it, and they don't necessarily realize the impact of that behavior in the moment on another student, another child. So sitting down with kids and doing it for ourselves too. I mean, I always say the self-report card is a gut check, and we need to do it with them, not just give it to our kids and say, hey, let's check in and see how you did on your kindness skills this week. Let's do it for ourselves too, because we're living, it's no big secret that we're all living in sort of hyper busy times, and we're all very, very connected online and in different ways. We're reachable at all hours of the day, all the time, which is something that's new and different, and continuing to get even bigger and bigger. And, when we live in that kind of way, we are exhausted, right? We're living in a state of perpetual exhaustion. We're always busy. We're always stressed. We always have something on our plate. And when we feel that way, even as adults, we tend to snap at other people. We tend to not always be as kind in the moment. So when we sit down and we do this report card and we say, hey, did I compliment someone today just because I could? Did I say something kind to a stranger just because I could? I stood in Rite Aid the other day and had a 10-minute conversation with an elderly woman. I noticed she was looking around. It looked like she was looking for someone to talk to. Something I know about the elderly is if they are alone a lot, they tend to look for conversation at places like the pharmacy or the grocery store checkout line, or,
right,
places where they're out shopping. And so I saw her looking around, and I had a few minutes on my hand, and I needed to get in line anyway. So I went up to her and said hello, and she said hi, and she complimented me on my kids, and she told me about her grandkids. These are small things we can do as humans and model for our kids that show them how important it is to just connect in real time, face to face with other people. This is what builds our social skills. Even as adults, we need to keep working on our social skills. So when we do that little report card, either, once a day or once a week, we really gut check ourselves and say, how was I a kind human to other people this week? What did I teach my kids this week? What did I learn from my own actions this week? It's an important thing to do.
It really is, and I really don't think we pay attention to how impactful our behavior is when it comes to things like gossiping. Because it could be a simple situation, Kate, you're in the car with your kids, maybe, you got an issue with your sibling, your younger brother, older sister, whatever, and you're talking to your parents about your sibling, and then you're kind of gossiping about what's going on in your sibling's household. I mean, that's still gossiping, even though you may not be talking about somebody that you don't know or a coworker. The fact that you're talking about a sibling, you're still engaged in the same behavior that you're modeling for the kid that may be in the back seat, giving them that signal that it may be okay for them to go and talk about people in the same way. And I think as adults, we're not in tune to that.
We're not. And that's very confusing for kids too. When we're telling them one thing and we're doing another, they have to sort of make sense of that and connect the dots. And the lines become very, very blurry. And when do I cross? When is it okay to cross that line? And they may, a lot of times what kids do, because as they're building their social skills, this is something they learn by watching, they may go to school and try out that we said, and then it comes back to us and we're horribly embarrassed that, that they repeated something, that we said or something. And so that's how they're learning. And we do need to be careful. And look, we all make mistakes, right? I mean, I do it too. And you bringing up the adult siblings is very important because that is sort of a hot spot for grownups is we get frustrated with our siblings, which is fine and normal and age appropriate. But we have to be careful about how we talk about it and handle it in front of our children. So, if we slip up and we say things that we realize sound gossipy or really aren't fair to the sibling who's not there to take part in the conversation, going back and saying to our kids, you know what, we were in the car the other day and I said some things I'm feeling like I shouldn't have said. And I want to talk about that with you and why I shouldn't have said those things. And that's important. And that shows kids also that, hey, we all make mistakes. Sometimes we're emotional and we're upset and we say things that we shouldn't say. And even if we directly to the target can still hurt by that. So, let's go back and let's talk about it. What could I have done differently? Help me think of something I could have done differently. What could I have said instead? Getting kids really involved in that process of thinking it through and how can we cope with our emotions, and feeling frustrated with another person. How can we deal with it without being hurtful?
And Katie, the thing I really love about No More Mean Girls is in one of your chapters when you talk about peer pressure, and this is something I haven't seen in any other book on this subject or dealing with teens, about refusal skills when it comes to negative peers, right? We always tell our kids, don't hang out with this group of kids, don't talk to that group of kids, but we never give them a skill set. We never provide a skill set. In your book, you really lay out how you need to teach your child how to walk away from negative peers. Instead of just telling them, you need to teach them, you need to role play with them, different scenarios, so they can navigate those negative peers they're going to see in the hallway, on the playground, or on the bus. And I think it's great. And kudos for you for really showing parents how to navigate that situation, provide this very specific skill set.
Well, thank you for that, for saying that. I mean, that's been an important part of my practice over these last almost 20 years is teaching kids how to do this because I find that they don't learn it at home. And they do hear a lot of just walk away, just ignore it. That's not the right friend for you. But, and that's fine to say those things. But when you're a kid, you're a 13-year-old kid in the face of this kind of gossip or hurtful behavior. I've seen, I've heard stories that you just wouldn't believe. And when they're face to face with it, first of all, they tend to freeze up. That's kind of your goes into fight or flight mode when you're stressed. And that kind of stuff, that whether it's relational aggression or whether it's even more physical aggression, it is stressful and it triggers that fight or flight mode. And most kids will freeze up and just stand there and not know what to do. The more you practice things with kids, when they're calm, when they're away from it, the better they become at using those skills in the moment. So it's not just a one-time, okay, here's what you can do if someone teases you or spreads mean gossip about you. It's an ongoing, hey, let's do some more role plays. Tell me some things that you saw this week and let's work it out together in case this ever happens to you. All right, now tell me some things you saw this week and let's work out what you could do the next time to help a friend if you see that again. Because it's not just teaching kids to stand up for themselves, it's teaching them to stand up for everyone. Because what we're finding is these, zero tolerance policies, those are great sound bites, but they don't do anything. And, telling kids to walk away doesn't do anything because it's exceptionally difficult to walk away from your peer group when they are the only friends you have ever known, even if they're being mean. So let's build them up and teach them to say, I don't like what you're saying. I was going to say, teach them to use assertive communication, make eye contact, stand tall, don't slump, stand tall and say, I don't like what you're saying about me. Please don't say those things. Or, you see a friend being teased or ostracized or isolated and going up to that friend and saying, hey, do you want to hang out with me right now? I'd like to go hang out with you at lunch. Those kind of things, small things, that seems insignificant, but those are the things that make a difference in the school.
And I love what you just said because that goes to being an upstander instead of being a bystander. And you really talk about that in the book. And I think you gave a couple examples in the book about how in order to be an upstander, what you could do as a child is look the perpetrator in the eyes if you don't agree with them while they're, instigating, the victim. You talk about befriending the victim as a way of being an upstander. I think those are some concrete examples for kids that they could utilize to be an upstander. Because that's one of the things, Kate, I hear a lot from kids in the school system when it comes to bullying, especially. It's like, I want to be an upstander, but how can I be an upstander? What should I do? What are the steps? And I think your book kind of lays out some concrete steps for them to be an upstander.
Right. And one thing parents can do just also so that kids strengthen those bonds is really help kids build those relationships, with the targets, with the victims outside of school. If your child comes home and says, oh, this kid was being bullied, but I stood up for him and I sat with him at lunch, or I sat with her at lunch, saying like, oh, well, that sounds like you got along with her. And, I'm really proud of you for doing it. And it sounds like you're becoming friends. Would you like to, take her to a movie? Should we invite her to a movie or something? Like, really build those relationships outside of school so that it shows other kids, hey, this is a great person to hang out with. I'm choosing to hang out with this person, and I'm choosing not to be involved in that anymore. It sends a strong message. I mean, the Wonder movie just came out, and the book is amazing. And if parents haven't read it to their kids, they should read it to their kids early and often. And the movie is a good adaptation of a book, but that is part of the struggle. Is it takes time, and we see it play out in the movie with Jack, Will, and Augie. It takes time to be the kid who is willing to say, I'm going to walk away from that and I'm going to stand up for this kid. And sometimes there are slip-ups, and sometimes kids make mistakes. That doesn't mean that it ends the game, right? Kids need to learn that they can be the upstander one day, slip up and not be an upstander the next day, but go back to being an upstander the following day. Like, they're allowed to make mistakes, but they can keep trying, and they can keep building that skill of reaching out to and connecting with other people.
Now, one of the things you talk about in the book is being assertive, and I think it's very important for parents, especially parents who have daughters or sons that may be aggressive, is, how do we channel that aggression into being just, good assertive behavior?
Well, one thing that's hard for kids is they don't really know what it means to be assertive. And parents use this word all the time, and teachers use it, but they don't really get it. And so when I run groups and I say, tell me what it means to be assertive, almost no one can answer that question on the first try. They really don't get it. So, and what they think of as assertive is really aggressive communication. So they think of people who sort of tower over other people and use their body positioning to take up more space and get a little bit louder. They think that's assertive, but really what it means to be assertive is to have a confident voice tone, to make good eye contact, to stand tall with your shoulders back, to sort of exude confidence, but also to listen. Because as much as assertiveness is standing up for your own rights and your own needs, it's also taking into account the rights and needs of the other people in the room. So it's not just a one-sided thing, and that's an important thing for kids to learn. So I talk a lot with parents about, little things they can do at home to really strengthen assertiveness, and you can make it fun. People always think these things are going to be boring, and that's why they don't want to do it. Or, I always say, kids don't get embarrassed about doing role plays and doing little games. It's parents who get embarrassed. They don't know how to step into the character, and they feel like, this is weird and I have other things to do and I'd rather do those other things. But once you can let go of your own insecurities and step into a role play, it's so impactful for kids of all ages. I can't stress it enough. But, so I'll say to parents, host a weekly debate night. And, post the topic at on Sunday and say, all right, next our debate is going to be gummy bears versus jelly beans. Which one is better and why? And have the kids pick a side. And they've got the week to come up with their arguments and to come up with some evidence and, make some visuals if they want. And then you sit around the table and, you moderate it like a real debate where somebody's asking the questions and somebody gets a turn to talk, and then they have to listen, and there's no talking over other people. Those are sort of the ground rules. And kids really practice projecting their voices and being confident and backing up their statements with information. These are all great assertiveness skills that will help them in high school, in the workplace, in college. These will help kids really walk through life confidently, and it's a fun way to practice it.
And I love that idea. And I love a lot of your ideas in your book, Katie, because you give it like a lot of examples from chapter to chapter of different role plays and different exercises that parents can do with their kids. And I think it's very important, like you said, is that, You can adapt those exercises to your particular household. You can put your own spin on it, your own vernacular, whatever you want to do. But the point is you still need to do the exercises and the role play and make it fun to teach the skill set. Because I think as parents, especially a lot of working parents, we're so busy trying to make ends meet, trying to put food on the table that we kind of neglect a lot of this stuff that we need to get back to in order to give our kids that solid foundation that they need to be successful. So, Katie, where can we find this book? Because, I mean, I vouch for it. I tell you guys, please get a copy. It's one of the most impactful books I've read this year when it comes to teenage girls. So, where can they find it?
Thank you.
Where can they find it?
I can't thank you enough for that statement, but everybody likes good feedback. So it's, January 30th. It is available everywhere books are sold. I do love when people go to their local independent bookstores because I find indie bookstores to just be run by amazing humans who really connect with people and want to help and want to get you what you need and make good recommendations. But in the event that you don't have an independent bookstore near you or in your town, it is available at, IndieBound, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Walmart, everywhere books are sold.
Do you have a website for the book?
I have a website for me, and it's called practicalkatie.com. And there I give a lot of parenting. I have a parenting blog there and give some information. I also update my speaking dates because I do travel the country talking to parents at schools about this kind of stuff and trying to make a difference.
Oh, that's awesome. What about any social media channels you want parents or teenage girls to follow you on?
You can find me on Facebook, Katie Hurley, LCSW. That's probably where I'm most active, and Katie F. Hurley on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram.
Great. Well, look, Katie, we really appreciate you being on the show, and the best of luck with your book.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the very excellent detailed interview with Katie Hurley. And I love how she really talked about a lot of those interventions like the self-report card, things that as parents we can use right now to really help our daughters be more compassionate and more kind. And make sure you go to Amazon.com and get your copy of No More Mean Girls. Make sure you have it in your house, your school, your church, in the community, because it's really something our girls are struggling with, is how to deal with these relational types of relationships and how to deal with the aggression that may come from it. And also make sure you go to iTunes and rate the Digital Parent Podcast. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you want more outstanding guests like Katie to be a part of this show. Until the next time.